Looking for an approval of the minutes of September the 14th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public communications.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to add an item to the agenda.
please.
Item number 11B, student expulsion.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. So students?
Good evening, board and all those in attendance. The college fair occurred a couple weeks ago, and many of our students from all grades were able to visit colleges from all over New England.
Let's get it closer.
Thank you. We're able to visit college from all over New England and learn about many different options for colleges. Open house was 2 weeks ago, and it was a great success. Many parents were able to meet their student's teacher and had a great time learning about the new classroom environment and block scheduling. The apple harvest was a success, other than the rainy weather, but many school clubs did a great job at their booth and in their parade. The robotics team had their annual STEM for All event, which provided a variety of free and fun STEM activities to people of all ages, and it was a great success with over 200 people showing up, even in the rain. The PSAT has been taking places over the last 2 weeks, and students have been doing a great job on it so far, and we wish them the best of luck. NHS fall induction was held today at 2:30. Many seniors were inducted today, and we were very proud of them. The Powerpuff team had their first practice last Saturday. Southern Music of the Night competition will be held on October 21st, 2023. The SHS Fall Concert will be taking place on October 24th, 2023, and Marine Bio class took a field trip to the Mystic Aquarium on October 2nd.
Now I'll be discussing the sports report. So the SHS girls volleyball team currently has an impressive 11-1 record, winning 11 consecutive matches, including an impressive 3 sets to none victory at the Mohegan Sun Arena over a highly ranked RHAM AM team this past Monday on Columbus Day. The team advanced to the Class LL State semifinals last season, and their only loss was to Trumbull, who were the last year's Class LL State tournament runner-ups. The team will be attempting to advance its winning streak to 12 consecutive matches at Conard High School tonight, and then they return home tomorrow night to play Glastonbury at 6 p.m. The other team highlight of the first half of the CIAC fall season is the Blue Knights girls swimming and diving team, which is currently undefeated with a 7-0 start. The team's most recent victory was 90-73 at Newington yesterday. The Blue Knights girls and boys cross-country teams had made history earlier this month when it hosted a Senior Day CCC cross-country tri-meet at the SHS campus trail course. This is the first time the teams have hosted a meet on campus at Sunnyton High School, and the Blue Knights boys defeated Glastonbury and Avon, and the girls defeated Avon and narrowly lost to the defending state champions, Glastonbury. The girls soccer team has won 7 straight matches, including Tuesday's victory at Glastonbury, posting a 7-2 overall record. The boys soccer team upset highly ranked Wethersfield 3-1 on Monday, improving their record to 4-4-2, winning for 6 of their 7 last matches. The SHS golf team recognized their senior players this afternoon at the Southington Country Club, and the fall teams appreciate the ongoing support.
Finally, for our district report. At DePaulo, over 250 students are now a part of the DePaulo Leadership Program. All of these 250 students were able to select the leadership opportunity that is most interest to them. Some of the community opportunities include student volunteering at the Calendar House, volunteering at Zion Nursery School, and volunteering at Hatton Elementary School. All DePaulo sports teams are off to a good start despite some of the rainy weather. Thank you to everyone for supporting DePaulo at the Apple Harvest Festival the last 2 weekends. Students collected donations for Alex's Lemonade Stand to raise funds for pediatric cancer research. DePaulo's Garden Club is wrapping up their growing season. Thank you to all community members that supported them throughout the summer. DePaulo students volunteered to help out at the annual soup night for Bread for Life. Last night, students had some fun while learning about giving back to those in need in their community. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I'm short tonight, so I can't see. We're good? I'm shorter than normal. All right, don't make fun. Does anyone have any questions of our students? No? Thank you, students. Okay, moving on. Communication from board members. Mr. Bajewski.
I had an opportunity to go to the Brew for Life event at the high school last night.
Oh, the soup night, yeah.
The soup night, it was absolutely awesome. I don't know if I broke any records, but I managed to do 11 bowls of soup. I was keeping track. I was
Bit
trying to,
excessive?
you know. The favorite was the corn, I believe it was corn chowder from Smoking with Chris. It was absolutely delightful. But we had all the middle schoolers from DePaulo doing busing and waitressing and waitering, and it was absolute great time. And yeah, it was just a very finely, smoothly run event. So
Wonderful.
it was a great time.
11 bowls.
11 bowls, Mrs. Carmody, you would have been proud of me.
I'm very proud of you,
Yep.
Joe. Very proud.
Growing boy in the wrong ways.
They were small bowls, right?
Oh, they were pretty
They're
good
pretty
size.
Joe, I'm trying to help you out.
No, you don't have to help me out.
Okay. Mr. Darrenowski.
Apple Harvest Festival. 2 Saturdays got rained out, but I must say the 2 Sundays, I happened to be down there, especially the first Sunday, the parade. I was really impressed with the elementary school floats and the high school band. I have to say that it was a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of people. Can imagine what it could have been if we had decent Saturdays. But it was a great time.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I know a couple of us have seen it over the last couple of weeks. There's been a few complaints that have come in regarding curriculum and asking for a curriculum review. So I just wanted to ask if Mr. Medancy, if you could just kind of walk through the process of policy 1312, kind of what the next steps are once those complaints are formalized.
Sure. So the way the process works is there's paperwork that's part of that policy in the regulations that folks are to complete, which gives a review committee kind of some background and context as to the rationale for the complaint. The policy states that we have 15 days to initiate action. So essentially that means forming a committee, scheduling a time for that committee to review the material and the complaints that were submitted. There's probably not a strong likelihood you get a resolution within 15 days because some folks may want to review the material and do some more research beyond review of the complaints themselves. But at that point, that committee will make a recommendation to me. I'll take that recommendation, consider it, and either endorse it and pass it on to this Board of Education or make my own recommendation to the Board of Education. At that point, once I make a recommendation to the Board of Education, I will also notify those who submitted those written complaints of the outcome or what my recommendation is to the board. Those folks can then come to the Board of Education and request a review of my recommendation, and the board ultimately determines whether they're going to go with the recommendation of the superintendent or they have a different recommendation, and at that point, decisions are final. There are no appeals.
Okay. No, thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what the process is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay, moving along. Communication from the administration. Mr.
Thank you,
Bedancy.
Madam Chair. I had a chance to attend with several of you this week, Mr. Shannon, Mr. Darrenowski, Mrs. Clark, the PTO meetings at, now, there's 4 of them now, so I don't get them wrong, South End, Kelly, Flanders, and Thalberg. Yes, yeah. They all happened quickly together. So great conversations with folks just to kind of provide an update on the status of the elementary facilities as a whole, but also a chance to answer any questions people had just about, information that circulates in the community that sometimes isn't always accurate. So a chance for firsthand for them to ask board members or myself questions. And then in addition to that, some talking points, and another agenda item I have here related to that is, some folks are starting to ask questions, and you may be getting them as well, about the kindergarten starting age and that recent legislation that changes the date. And we know that impacts families. And so as I shift onto that agenda item, we know right now that it'll impact at least 99 Southington families, potentially up to 125, with students that will have been born after September 1st. And typically, the start date had been January 1st of that school year. So there are a lot of questions that still remain unanswered. One answer I did get from the commissioner last week was that there will not be a universal assessment given to school districts by the state. So every district is going to utilize their own assessment to determine whether children can qualify for an exception and enter. I've got grave concerns about that because I think every child is different. And so if folks are comparing decisions districts are making who are using different assessments to different children, I think it puts our principals particularly, but even those who are helping to administer the assessment, because the legislation says if a request is made, the principal is the one who determines if the child can start or not. That puts the principal in a fairly precarious situation in terms of the start of their relationship with the family for the next 13 years. Like, I don't think your child's ready to start yet. And if that puts a hardship on a family, they're not going to love that principal from day one. And yet they're going to be with them for the next 13 years. So I'm not in love with that piece of legislation. So I think we are looking for that to be revisited in the next legislative session. I'll be talking to folks on the Education Committee about that piece. I have real concerns about some of the inequities that could come from a screening process. We know there are some situations that will put kids at an advantage, if not developmentally, just academically entering into a screening process that others may not have had those advantages, which will only place them farther behind. And so if we're able to come up with some creative solutions, for example, a third year of preschool or some sort of, well, I'll call it age 5 program that isn't necessarily kindergarten, if we can come up with some creative solutions as a community to allow those kids either to have a preschool experience that would not otherwise have had one, absent parent expense, because we know that's a hardship, and we also know those seats don't exist in the community for 125 students at private schools, and or introduce them to some of those initial foundational skills that they maybe didn't represent on the screening that they have. It now allows them to enter at age 6 on the same playing field. And I think ultimately that's what we want for everybody, to have the same opportunities for outcomes. So I'll keep the board apprised of what happens both at the state level on this. We were assured we were going to get guidance from the state on how to, administer this legislation. And I had said to the commissioner, we kind of need that guidance yesterday, because if anybody has a young child in this community, you know that you try to seek a seat for your child months in advance because there's a shortage. And these private groups want commitments and deposits and to save a seat for a child that may be coming. In addition to, I said, I'm working on my budget essentially at the beginning of October. I start the initial draft, if you will, of ideating different situations that we could be up against. If I have less kindergarten teachers because I'm down 125 students, could I repurpose those kindergarten teachers to be the age 5 teachers for the students that we might not say are ready to start kindergarten? So it wouldn't cost us anything different than it would have cost us if they were all able to start on September 1st. But we now are taking that expense off parents and giving kids educational opportunities that they wouldn't provide absent our innovative, approach. Lastly, what's the certification? Because right now, kindergarten teachers are not certified to teach preschool. And so the state's going to need to make some sort of exception that if I'm able to repurpose those kindergarten teachers because I have less section to an age 5 program, they have to give us some certification flexibility, so even if it's for a year, so that we can repurpose existing staff to, for those positions that we open up. And then ultimately facilities. Where would these classes be? Would there be transportation provided, or would parents be transporting? Would it be full day or half day? Because a preschool is, in many instances, unless it's a daycare, is not full day.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, correct. So we still have a lot of questions, and so I understand families really would like answers sooner than later, and I can totally understand why, having been through that myself. But I think we still need to iron out the details. Lastly, I'm working with the Early Childhood Collaborative, and we have a meeting set up in a couple weeks with some of our, what I'll call major community partners, to see if there might be some subsidies for families as well. So it may not be something the district is subsidizing, but if there's subsidies to the collaborative, that a parent can apply for a subsidy if they decide to place their child in a preschool program. That subsidy reduces or eliminates the cost to a family who otherwise this may create a hardship for. So stay tuned on that front. We're working a lot on it and kind of gathering a lot of information and try to ideate right now so that we can advise our families. Additionally, Mr. Crocco and I had a chance to meet with Owen McLaughlin. He's the new director of the Agricultural and Science Center at the high school. And he had always, in the Ag Sci program, had always applied for it and received the approval from the state. It's called the UELP program, the Unpaid Experiential Learning Program. And our students go out into the field. They can't make money doing it, but they get field level experience in exchange for credit. High school credit. Now, we know our graduation requirements and state legislation allow for that, experiential learning opportunities to earn credit. Owen, had said, I would be willing to apply on behalf of the entire high school and see if we can expand unpaid experiential learning program opportunities for kids beyond agricultural science and technology. So he did submit the grant. We're waiting to hear back, and if we get approval for that, that's more opportunities that we can offer to kids. And I think it aligns nicely with the recent shift to the block, because the kids are getting out a little bit earlier for that last period of the day and can go out into the field and get work experience and something they may aspire to pursue post-high school. I think that's a great opportunity for them, and they get to earn credit at the same time. Science of Reading update, we have a district committee that is, we had applied for and been accepted into what's called the Science of Reading Master Class. It's a partnership between the State Department of Education and the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. We've had 2 sessions so far. It's great professional development for this literacy team as it works and helps us to make informed decisions about our shifts to reading and literacy instruction in the district that are coming up with that recent legislation. So I can keep you updated on that at future updates. And then lastly, I'll be looking to schedule a district-wide facilities committee meeting. So Mr. Carson and Mrs. Clark and Mr. Oceana, within the next couple weeks, so that we can have the initial conversations around, all right, so we're not going to referendum in November 23, now what? And so to kind of have a chance for everybody to regroup. I understand we have an election timeline that we're up against, so folks may be on because we have representation from the Board of Finance and the Town Council on this district-wide facilities committee, that there may be some members changing, which is all the more reason why I'd at least like to get the current existing members one last chance to meet to kind of calibrate and set the course, because these are the folks that have been involved in conversations the past 2 years. So at least whatever they're recommending makes the most sense in terms of proceeding and going forward if there is to be a change in membership. So that's my update for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Okay. Communication from the public on agenda items only. Yeah. These are just for agenda items.
Well, it was discussed during
It's-
communication, so that is part of the agenda.
No, it is not.
1312.
No, I'm sorry, it is not. It is not an agenda item. If you're
If
going to
it's-
talk about something that was a conversation, it is not on our agenda.
If it was discussed during the agenda, it's now part of the agenda, Madam Chair. I would review your policy.
Could you,
Does anyone here know Robert's Rules of Order?
may I ask our parliamentarian, could you please check on that for me?
Sure.
Before you start.
Is curriculum on the agenda?
Units of study for a first read are, but I believe, so if it's relative to any of the curriculum units of study, then that would be agenda related.
Units of study meaning what, Superintendent?
All of the first reads that are listed on the agenda.
Okay, but since it was brought up during council,
Because there's no
during
action.
communication?
Because there's no action on board communications, those are not actionable agenda items. And the idea behind public comment for agenda-related items is to get feedback related to items that the board may be taking action.
Is that part of Robert's Rules of Orders? Have you?
It's not.
Can you
it's-
cite that for me?
It's nor part or nor not part of it.
Do you have it?
But there is a second.
So you want
public
me to wait
communication.
until the end?
Yeah,
Yes,
there is a
we
separate
have a
public
public
communication.
comment. Does anyone else have any items regarding our agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move along to curriculum and instruction.
That's me.
Okay.
We had a meeting on Friday. Lisa Daigle, on behalf of Zachary Olet, presented revisions to the SHS Accelerated Physics course, Momentum and Impulse, which focuses on properties of matter and collisions. Work and Energy allows students to discover various forms of energy and energy transformation, and Simple Harmonic Motion explores its namesake as a new type of motion to most. And finally, Unit 6, it's Electrostatics and Circuits explores focuses between charges of moving charges and application of current and resistance. Lisa Daigle continued with 3 update units within SHS Accelerated General Chemistry course. The first unit was Matter and Energy Changes, focuses on classifying and balancing chemical equations and predicting products with known reactants. The second unit, viewed as Unit 4, gas law and kinetics. In this unit, students are gonna focus on kinetic, molecular theory, and gas laws. And the third and final unit was presented as Unit 5, the Flint water crisis, in which students focus on components of solution, solubility curves, molarity, and molarity calculations. Jennifer DeSenza, Head of Counseling, presented a middle school needs assessment. This assessment will inform support staff in each middle school of potential topics for group discussions throughout the year. Students' participation in groups is only permitted with parent permission, and the committee unanimously agreed to move forward with this and bring it for a full board review. Later on in the agenda, items 10C through 10J are going to be first reads on these items. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No, just very interesting. I know you're laughing at me.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Carmody, but we've been,
Mrs. Clark, were you laughing at me?
no, I was laughing with you because I know your fondness for physics, chemistry at Al, so,
It was fun. It was fun.
It was fun, and
I'm
they did
sure-
an excellent job.
as they do,
Present-
as
it
they
was a
do.
great
I did see you
presentation.
laughing at me.
I wasn't laughing at you, I was laughing with you.
right,
Because,
thank
no,
you.
I know, this is, as I was reading it, as I was reading the curriculum, thinking to myself, there's words in here I don't understand. So
Yes.
I had to, and there was one I couldn't pronounce, I was going to ask Mr. Pepe
They
later,
did, you know
but,
what, they brought
Yeah.
it down.
They
I
did,
think, Dawn, they brought it
to
down.
our level. They
To your
did.
Our level, and
They
then
did.
Mr. Pepe, of course.
They know better.
is there to help us understand
Mr.
everything, so
Pepe
thank you,
was-
Mr. Pepe.
and I love that they're bringing in the Flint water
Yeah.
as a real life.
Pretty nasty.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Pictures were pretty
yeah.
gross.
So, well, thank you,
They were.
thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the personnel report.
I move to recommend that the Board of Education approve the personnel report as submitted by the Human Resource Department.
Second?
It was a tie. It was a tie. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Old business, town government communications? No? Okay. And then the Con Ed battery storage project. Did you want to?
Yes, so I had thought this would be, given the timing of upcoming elections and the fact that we've been deliberating on this project since the spring, and the reality in my conversations with our energy management consultant that the incentive window may be closing on this project opportunity, to put this on the agenda, at least for further discussion by the board tonight. If the board so chooses to take action this evening, they can, and if not, and we want to wait to the next meeting, we may. At that point, we may be running the risk of that incentive window closing or inaction on the project, okay? I know through our conversations, you had something you had wanted to share, so I'll defer to you first, and then I'll provide a little bit of additional information to the board.
So as some of you may know, I offered to go down to Ardsley to see said battery pack, which I did. I went down to Ardsley, and where it was located on their property gave me pause, because as I drove up a very nice driveway, it's a beautiful neighborhood, it was off to the side, and I was looking actually at the school. I drove past it. It's not as big as a tractor trailer. It isn't. But is it attractive? No. It's battery packs. It's big cabinets, white cabinets behind fencing with accompanying electrical equipment. There was no noise from it, but I missed the quote-unquote discharge period. But from what I was told by, I think it was Adam, said that RWE will take care of any noise, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Attenuation, thank you. If there is any, from the discharging batteries. But I missed by a day or two when they were discharging, because I believe they don't discharge during the
Not
winter.
year-round, only during a certain window.
Yeah, only during a certain period. Is it pretty? No, it's not. It's a group of batteries, and it was behind a fence. It wasn't the most offensive thing I've seen, but I would like it personally to be off where it's not going to be so obvious. But as far as finding it offensive, dangerous, anything, no, I
So
didn't.
do we have, do you think, at the two middle schools, a place to put that? That would not interfere with where our air conditioning units
Yeah,
are?
this would be the question. Do we have, or could they come up with an
So-
alternative?
Yeah, and so I'll address that in a moment as probably part of a larger, point of conversation. I've received questions from, all of you at various points, and each time as we get them, we try to find, out that information. One question that was asked was, if the board agrees to this, does the $50,000 go to the town or to the board? And so the information that I got from the town manager is that it goes through the town and then is appropriated to the board, because essentially it's the town that enters into the contract, not the board.
It goes to the town first.
And then it gets appropriated to us. We have several standing appropriation requests with the town that we've had for years, and so
Like
once we-
leases, people, when they lease our
Right, I got it,
facilities,
okay.
it goes through the town.
Yeah. So that was one question. Another question was, what about if the battery there's theft or it's vandalized? And the unit itself is the responsibility of RWE. They own the property. They're only leasing the land that it's on. So because it's a very valuable piece of equipment, they do insure it, and they are responsible for all, maintenance, damage, upkeep, whatsoever. There's no responsibility to the town or the board on that front. And then the last point of conversation, I would say, is relative to our electricity costs. I just wanted to bring this forward to the board in terms of us being forward-looking. Our electricity contract is set to be re-signed, or if renegotiated, if you will, by October 2024. So we're going to start to look at that sooner than later in terms of trying to get the best rate we can prior to that contract expiring. But right now, at 7 cents per kilowatt hour, it's projecting to, at best, maybe get to 11 cents per kilowatt hour, which we would see an increase of $250,000 annually to our electricity bill. I think we've kind of reaped the benefits of a great electricity contract that we were locked into, while other communities, and my conversations with superintendents last year was like, geez, how much did you have to add to your budget for electricity? And the reality is we dodged that problem because we were locked in. But it's going to come home to roost in 2024. So I do think the $50,000 coming back to the Board of Education helps to soften that blow. But I would agree with you, having been the principal at Kennedy Middle School and very familiar, at least with that property, the chiller itself is already a large piece of equipment. And when I think of our kids that are out on the baseball field playing baseball on the first baseline, do they need two large eyesores out there? The chiller is there already. To add a second large white cabinet to that can be a bit obtrusive, a bit of an eyesore. So I would say if the board were to entertain and approve the town negotiating contract, it would also be with the stipulation that it's an agreed-upon location between the administration and RWE, so that we could have our Director of Operations, Mr. Romano, find a less obtrusive area that still kind of meets the goals of, getting access to the electricity room for the security of the project. Also, as a reminder, there was a request that would they consider, in terms of trying to sweeten the deal, adding something, and they did offer to install an EV charging station at the high school at their expense. For part of this project. Some people said, why not at the two middle schools? The reality is we have far more vehicles at the high school that might be more likely to use or need it than staff alone, plus students, than we would at the middle schools. And so that was really just, if it was going to be one, the high school made more sense than choosing one of the middle schools. So that's kind of, I don't have any new information beyond that, so I think a lot of this is what we've discussed. So for some of you, it may not be new information, I apologize, but I just wanted to make sure everybody had all the information going into any decisions that may be made this evening.
I wish you had taken a picture of it.
I have, can I?
You have a picture of it?
It's not ugly, it's a white cabinet. The
It's-
problem is a
No,
picture,
I'm
you
just-
can't,
I'm concerned about the size of it.
you can't tell by scale in a picture because you don't know what the back, against the backdrop. Just saying.
Okay, Steve. just
A car
thought
looks
I'd
small in a
ask.
picture.
I just thought I'd ask.
There's a lot of good reference pictures online as well.
And there's pictures on it, that's what it looks like. Oh, it's, I'm not saying it's small, it is good size.
No.
Madam Chair, if I may add to the commentary.
Well, is there a motion on the floor?
Well, we need a motion.
Yeah,
to-
I'll add some comments and,
Well, usually we have a motion,
well,
okay? And then discussion, so,
I'll make a motion to move that the Board of Education approve moving forward with the concept of the RWE property lease for the battery storage system at DePaulo and Kennedy middle schools to be considered by the town council with the stipulation that its final location be a mutually agreed upon location between RWE and the administration.
Second.
okay?
Jasper.
Now we can have discussion.
okay.
There you go.
In addition to some of the answers and questions that we've presented over the course of several months now, I think there are still outstanding questions to answer and concerns. You know, one being, obviously being the location, another one being, you know, the location of an EV charging station. You know, if we do put it at the high school, yes, that's great for purposes of being able to serve more people, because there's more vehicles over there, but then who's paying for that, you know, those charging events? We would rather have it, a charging station at each of the middle schools to be able to tap into the battery storage, the energy stored in the batteries, to be able to charge those units, which, you know, just some cursory research, those EV charging stations cost anywhere between, you know, like $1,500 and $2,000 a year, to be able to charge vehicles throughout the year. So again, that's, you know, it's great that they're gonna incentivize us with installing a charging station, but who's gonna pay for the electricity bill when that charging station is used? So I think if we could have them installed where the battery units are installed and tap into that power source, that makes a lot of sense for us. So that's another concern that I have. In addition to that, I think there's a conversation that needs to take place with the town manager and town council regarding what the tax benefit to the town is going to be regarding this equipment. What is the equipment valued at, and what is, you know, how is it going to enter the tax roll? What is that benefit to the town in addition to, you know, the set $50,000 in lease payments? With all that said, I would move to table a vote until next scheduled meeting.
Mrs. Clark?
Wait a second, we can't have any
Motion
further
to table,
discussion.
There's no discussion.
There's no discussion.
No discussion?
Not repeat the motion.
No, he just made a motion to
We
table.
have a motion and to table. Okay.
Right. Do I have a second to table?
Second.
Seconded the table?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay, so I will find answers to those questions and bring back that to,
I think we have to take a vote.
We
on-
still have to
yeah,
take
we
a
have to
vote.
On the motion to table now.
We have to vote on the motion to table. Should we do a roll call? Yeah, let's do a roll call, please.
Yes.
Mrs. Anastasio,
Yes.
Mrs. Carmody,
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Mister, we know who you are.
Yes.
I'm ready to move forward, but out of respect for the request for a table, I vote yes for the table.
Yes to table.
Yes. Okay, motion to table passes. Next item on the agenda. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pepe and Mr. Medancy and Mrs. Crouch.
Thank you. Mrs. Crouch is here to present some information on the multilingual department and how we service our kids and how the program continues to expand. So take it away.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. So when I first came into Southington, I was brought into Southington into the multilingual department. Originally, we were called the English language department, but there has been a shift statewide to move to a more positive name for identifying our students who come into our buildings speaking multiple languages. So I want to go through and kind of talk about what the structure is of our department, because a lot of people are not really sure what it is that we do or how we do what we do, especially because in the last couple of years, we've had such a huge growth of multilinguals coming into our schools. So we have a combination of certified teachers as well as non-certified staff. So for our non-certified staff members, we have about 5 full-time non-certified staff members. 1 is a part-time, and we call them multilingual tutors, and they are under our paraprofessional ABA contract. Their primary responsibilities when they are working with our kids is they push into classrooms to support students with limited language skills. They help teachers to modify assignments and modify work that they might be doing. They pull students out of the classroom to work on their language skills one-to-one or sometimes in small groups. And they also assist our whole department in completing the filing, screening, and testing that is necessary to meet state deadlines and state mandates. We have 3 TESOL certified staff. TESOL stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. So we also call our teachers ESOL teachers as well. And we have 3 certified staff members, Diana Hunter, Beth Hosmer, and Patricia Pettit. And their primary responsibilities, they oversee all of our multilingual or ML tutors and support them with their planning and their management of the school. They provide language instructions to students, so that's very similar to what our ML tutors are doing. So the 3 of our certified staff teachers have their own home schools that they work directly one-to-one with kids. They also attend PPTs and academic planning meetings in the assigned schools that they have. So all 3 of them are overseeing about 4 schools because we need to cover all 11 schools because our multilinguals are spread out among all of the schools. They also support teachers in the classrooms with modifying and planning for students to ensure that they're successful in the classroom with their students. Our numbers of multilingual students, as I said, has really skyrocketed. This is not just something that is just in Southington. This is something that has occurred throughout our state and probably throughout many states across the United States at this time. So when I came into the department, it was a relatively small amount of students. We have always been considered a low incident district. That's how they identify districts that have small numbers. So I came in and it was about 125 to 145, and we often fluctuated between those numbers. We would have kids leave the district, come back in, then come back, and then we'd have more kids come in. In 2022, 2023, we started to see those numbers creeping, and by June, we were up to about 190 that we had identified as multilingual. And now, as of 23-24, we've officially hit the 200 mark and are at about 210. And I have about 4 other students that just came into the district that are now sitting in my email waiting to go through that screening process. So the numbers continue to grow. And my notice here is that many of these students are at a level of 1 to 2 English proficiency. So when we're looking at a kid's ability to speak English and how proficient they are in English, we look at it on a range of 1 to 4. 4 being proficient, and 1 to 2 is being lower proficient. So if you have students that are levels 1 to 2, they require way more support than a student who's at a level 4. So not only are we seeing the increase in numbers, we're seeing an increase in the number of students that are coming in that are really at those beginning English levels. So that takes more time and more support, and it's getting a little difficult. It's getting a little tight with our numbers. I wanted to say I did go through all of the languages that we have represented, because many people always say to me, well, how many different languages do we have here? In Southington, we have about 27 different languages that are represented by our students. And I also want to put out there that these are just the students that are identified as not being proficient in English. Those numbers do not count the number of students living and attending our schools that are at home speaking other languages, but they happen to be proficient in both their first language as well as in English. So we have multiple students that are going home and speaking Spanish or speaking Punjabi, and then they come back into the school and they're speaking English, and no one even knows that they're at home speaking another language. So it's a really exciting thing to be seeing in town as our diversity is growing linguistically, but it's a little intimidating as well, because our classrooms, are becoming filled with these students that they have a lot of need. And getting those needs met is not easy. We have a lot of state requirements. As multilinguals, the state is really working hard to make sure that this is a protected class of students. We know that they're high need and they're high risk. So all the multilinguals, they have to be identified in the Power School or the State Power School by October 1st. So we pretty much, our whole staff was all hands on deck for the month of September, screening all of new kids that come into the district. Any kindergartner that comes in and identifies and has another language, they all have to be screened. And new students coming in from other countries, as well as other states, now have to be screened. We have to provide notification of service every August to September, anywhere in between that time. We have many duly identified students. If they are duly identified, that means that the student is both special education as well as a multilingual, which provides a different level of need for that student. We have to put in all of the accommodations, because all multilinguals are eligible for accommodations on all state testing, the ESPA, the NGSS, the Connecticut School Day, and now we have a new test that is the Connecticut Alternative Assessment for English Language Proficiency. Every year, we assess where our English language learners are in their language proficiency. So that takes us about a 3-month span of time. We have from January to March to individually screen all 210 of these students on a test that has 4 domains, and it's a lengthy test. It can take them a couple of days to finish the test. And that's our last links, and that gives us, we get the information by June, and it tells us, okay, how far along are these students in their language proficiency? It also helps us to decide who will continue to be an ML next year or who is ready to exit. Now, linked with the last links, we now have the KELP test, which is an alternative test for our students that maybe have cognitive disabilities and are not able to take the ESPA, but maybe they take the alternative assessment for the ESPA test as well. Those students now have a language assessment that can be used to decide where their language proficiency is as well. So that just was introduced last year. We also are responsible for all of the filing, and it's a lot of filing because we have to put all our last links results into permanent records and make sure we keep track of all of our data and make sure we know which students are which and who they are and where their levels are. And we also have to share home proficiency reports with parents, and that is a lengthy process because we have a main letter. We have to translate that into multiple languages because many of our parents are not proficient in English. So we have a lot of, on the paperwork side, to do as well. We want to make sure that we're able to support our staff as well as our families as much as possible. So we do have some options if we need translation support. Language Line has been an amazing resource for us. It gives us the ability to call up in a moment's notice. They provide an interpreter for us, and right then and there, we can have a meeting with an interpreter and our staff and the parent. So it can be used in so many different ways, and much of our staff has really utilized this and had great results from it. We also, Steve and Jen DeSenza sent out a wonderful survey last year. This was so amazing to see it come to fruition. But they created a survey where we asked our staff members, hey, do you speak another language? And would you be willing to participate in conferences and help our families? And many of them said yes. So we have this awesome list that we are now able to share with our staff. And last year, it was exciting to see them actually utilize it. So we had some teachers that came over from the high school and they came over to the elementary and they participated in parent-teacher conferences on their own time, which was amazing. So, and we just keep adding names to that. So that's been awesome. And then we also have CREC, which has been also a great resource for us. And we contact Lynn Oliveira and we can set up interpreters to come in face-to-face for meetings, PPTs, and special planning meetings. So these resources have been great. We could always use more because, as I've been explaining, the need is just growing. We try to provide our family support. My ML staff is really great about this, and we try to get out into buildings to help schools build connections with their families, because with the language barrier, it just creates a boundary between schools and families. You know, many families don't really know how to access the help they need. They don't know, they don't understand what's happening in school, and they really just trust us with their children. So we have to really help them to learn how to advocate for their kids, to ask for what they need. So we do use Language Line to set up a time that works best. We are sure, we ask everyone to make sure that you stay in contact with your 3 TESOL teachers. They travel, they're always in their cars. And then Parent Square has been a great addition to our district because it allows families to change the language. The struggle has been making sure that families know how to access that feature on Parent Square. But we are doing it slowly but surely as we meet one-to-one. We've provided translated directions, and so we're starting to notice that more of our families are being able to access Parent Square. So we've had some success with that as well. If anyone's ever looking for more information we do have the state page. I wrote EL page, it stands for English Language Page. It's changed now, the state just recently changed the whole thing over. It's now EL/ML page. We have the EL guidelines for administrators. I shared this presentation with all of the administrators so that they can have a little bit more understanding of what our department does and how we can help support their schools. And we also have the Connecticut ELP standards. ELP stands for English Language Proficiency Standards. So Connecticut has been really proactive in making sure that mainstream teachers and educators really understand what is appropriate to expect of a student who is speaking at a level 1 English language proficiency. The guidelines are there. We are still working through that. It's not an easy document when you have so many other things you're looking at, like you're looking at your Common Core standards, you're looking at, so finding ways to marry that. We're always looking for ways to make that easier for our staff. But we have to say that this district has been awesome in really being open to the suggestions that we bring and to the coaching that we bring. And so it gets better and better every year. So yeah, that's it for our English language learners. They're doing really well, but the numbers are getting a little scary. So I'm not sure at what point, and I was saying this to both Frank and Steve, it's getting to the point where we are really struggling with being able to meet the needs of all of our students. Unfortunately, we have 2 schools right now that are not covered by one of our tutors because we are in the process of hiring someone to take on that position, and it's a really hard position to take on because we ask them to do a lot, way more than what is outlined in their contract. So we really need people who are really committed to that. We've been very lucky. We've always had really outstanding tutors who are just willing to go above and beyond. But it's not easy. We've had a lot of people retire, which was so sad for us. We had 2 people retire last year, and they were amazing. And finding people to come in and replace them is not easy. So
you can see Simone is a wealth of knowledge and background. And one thing that I don't want to overlook, and when Simone assumed the position as assistant principal at the high school, which is a pretty busy position, she did not let go the oversight of everything she just described. And that is really tribute to her professionalism and dedication to our students. It is way above and beyond. When she presented this to the administrative staff, I sarcastically said, well, it's a good thing this is all you have to be worried about is the ML. Forget about the assistant principal duties. So it's a lot. She's here to answer any questions you have as well.
Just a comment, thank you, Simone. I would definitely think this would be an area where we need more staff, without a doubt, because these are our students in all our schools, from elementary on up. And how many languages?
About 27.
37.
About 27.
27.
Which is
27.
still a lot,
50,
yes.
Yeah.
27, that's a lot of different
Yeah.
languages.
I guess we have to talk to the superintendent about the fact that we probably do need more help in this area. I don't know how you could ever manage with the number of staff that you do have, really.
We are making it work because we have to, right? Because we
Yeah,
never
you
want to
do.
leave our students unsupported and on their own. But it is getting tricky. And what's really interesting is the number of students that are coming in from war-torn countries. So we actually had a huge influx of students that came in from Ukraine. And in this position, a lot of what we do is counseling and support and just being there for them. And that takes time. And so, I mean, our high school used to be the smallest number of students. We're at 41 at the high school. And we have to put these kids into earth science classes, and we have to put them, no offense to earth science, but that's like a whole other language, you know, and physics and chemistry. And then we have students that are, you know, just learning English, but we have to put them into a world language class too, because they need that graduation requirement. So these 41 high schoolers that we have, they are really doing amazing things because they are coming into that building and just being, we have to toss them kind of into the classroom and go, okay, you can do this. And then we provide them the emotional support. And it's a lot of emotional support. It takes a lot of time, but they're wonderful kids and they can do such amazing things, but they need support. And our teachers need support because they need to learn how to work with these kids. It's a very scary thing when you have a student sitting in front of you and they don't speak the language that you speak. How do you give them content? It's just not easy.
If you go back to the numbers of when you started, what was the overall number?
When I started, we always were between 125 to 145. We really didn't exceed that. Maybe we'd get to 150, then lose 2 kids.
Where are we now?
210, with more in the wings.
And that's exactly where I was headed, right?
What's your question,
Nobody
Joshua?
could ever plan for a 45% increase, you know, in 2 years.
No.
It's pretty remarkable. And so, one, thank you for bringing this to us. I think it's very important as we look forward, we get into the next budget cycle, being able to plan ahead. This is the type of analysis that the board needs to make the right decisions, right? So definitely appreciate you taking the time. This is very eye-opening, so thank you.
Yeah.
Please, it's my honor to come and present and let you know about this population because so many times you don't really hear about them.
So I think this also speaks to, it seems to me there's an ongoing request for how many FTEs does the district have? And you can't plan for the unknown. And so when the unknown happens, you do have to be reactive, reflexive, adaptable, whatever you want to call that, in order to you know, adjust as needed. We've always talked about this relative to special education. You have a special education budget, but you could have a student move into town that wasn't part of what you may have included in any tuition costs or paraeducator needs or anything like that, and you ultimately, at that point, have to add the appropriate supports by law. It's now in that same realm with our multilingual students. You don't know who's going to register at your school over the summer, so when you're preparing a budget in the previous fall, you're not forecasting a 45% increase and therefore requesting staff associated with that. So you may need to be, you know, again, responsive and flexible enough in order to do that. Now, one thing I would remind this board, for some of you who were with me back when I was assistant superintendent, is we used to have 1.5 certified staff. We had one person retire and we had one full-time person at the high school, right? And so we ended up, that's doubled in the past 4 years to 3. But it's still not a big number when you're talking 210 students, right? And then with the tutors, we used to have 5, we added it to 6, you know? And so we've gone to 9, you know, overall, but we have 12 schools and 210 students. So the 9 people, to Simone's point, if you just take the high school, one staff member unto itself, you have 11, schools for the remaining 8 staff members to cover. And these students are spread across various grade levels and classrooms. So it is a very complex challenge. And I give credit to Simone and that department because I've witnessed firsthand the work that they do. They do go above and beyond and try their best each time a new student is identified to make those students feel welcome and to help support what the needs of those students may be when they get into the classroom.
Zaya, did you have a question?
Just a question for you. So the survey that was sent out to the staff, that was for folks that wanted to volunteer?
Yeah.
Correct. So it's kind of impressive when you open this thing up and you look at the languages that are in here that these people are volunteering.
Amazing.
It's just another example, and you mentioned it, but I think it's important to say that not only that they're willing to come forward and help these students, but just another example of the type of staff that this district has, that are willing to raise their hand and say, I want to come out and help and volunteer. It's a large number of people and a tremendously large number of languages. Very,
Yeah.
very impressive. Thanks to you and thanks to the teachers that are willing to volunteer to do this.
Yeah, I really say thanks to Steve and Jen DeSenza. They sent it out and they just sent out an updated one as well. And we're so lucky to have it because we needed something. We needed something to help families and help the staff as well. I just want to make sure that that's really important, because what my 3 teachers are doing, we're really trying to support the staff. This is an incredibly difficult thing to undertake when you have these students sitting in your room. You are responsible for giving them content, but they don't understand the language you are speaking. So how am I managing that? How am I teaching them? And our teachers need the support as much as our kids need the support. So we really try to take care of both.
And these staff members are willing to step up
And
and do go above
yes.
and beyond what they're doing normally to step in
Yes.
and help.
And they've been
support those
wonderful.
kids
They will get on
and
the
those
phone with
teachers.
parents. They will go to conferences with parents. They've been outstanding. Very lucky in Southington.
Thank you.
I did.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have.
Just a little more, Simone.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Thank you so much for coming before us and bringing this to our attention because it greatly affects the work that we do throughout the year, especially preparing for budgets to make sure that our students receive the best education that they possibly can. Superintendent, thank you so much for bringing up the legal aspects of what's involved here. And many people, both from the public all the way through administration, right, don't understand the legal obligation that we have as a district to deliver a multilingual education to these students. And so when we talk about staffing and we talk about programming, it's very important to bring this into a public forum. So when we talk about FTEs, 9 months from now, when we talk about additional programming, when we talk about funding sources, we already have the wagon moving, so to speak. And so, and I speak in generalities regarding our legal obligation, but you're talking about both state and federal laws and legislation. So you're talking about big things like civil rights and
100%.
equal educational opportunity. And so to have you on board and to know that you've kept this responsibility is very reassuring to me as a board member. And I just want to say thank you and just a couple questions.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
And Superintendent, maybe you can answer them as well. Do we currently have any bilingual aides?
Yes,
Okay, how many?
I have to think. Let's see. So I have one who's a Spanish speaker at Flanders.
Okay.
She's a fluent Spanish speaker. We lost one of my tutors who was Arabic, and she did a lot for our family. She spoke Arabic and French. I'm currently interviewing someone who speaks Italian. So we get a lot of different languages that come in. We do try to look for people, obviously, that have another language that we can like leverage when they come in. We don't always find staff with that ability.
And I think the link to the survey of the folks who volunteered, I mean, those are the ones that we know and acknowledge that they speak another language, and those were not all certified staff. Some of those were non-certified
Some of our
as
are
well.
non-certified. I forgot we have Albanian as well.
Okay, and am I correct in stating that those aides have to work underneath of a certified teacher?
So, yes and no. I mean, when you use the word aid, and I think it depends how we're interpreting that, because you and I think we were talking paraeducators who may be bilingual, and then we're talking about our multilingual tutors, and the tutors do have to work under the supervision of a certified staff member, correct?
Okay. The screening process, is that process, is that handed down by the state?
Yes.
And there's clear delineation of criteria within that screening process to determine your MLs?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there's one assessment that we call the pre-loss that's used for our kindergarten students, and that is primarily an oral assessment because obviously many of our kindergartners are not coming in with literacy skills yet. And then we have the Lost Links placement tests. Those are given in grades 1 through 12, and those are a combination of the 4 domains, so it's listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Okay. And with regards to both state and federal funding, do you have somebody that supports you as far as all the grants? I mean, this is an enormous area when it comes to funding and grant applications. Do you do that? And
I do.
You do?
With Jennifer Mellett, who is my biggest supporter. I was
Okay.
like, how do I do this? We were actually very lucky this year because we always have the Title III grant. That's kind of like we always earn that one. That's the one that helps us to really support the work that we do. But this year, because we've had such an influx of students that are immigrants, we were able to apply and we had gotten the immigrant grant, which was super exciting. So they gave us about $10,000 for our district to spend to utilize in resources for our kids. So we're looking at different kinds of computer programs that we can be using to help improve kids and their oral language, because if you can't speak another language, you definitely can't read another language. So we're looking to build up our supplies in that way. But
Okay,
yes,
so
Jen Mellett is my
Okay.
go-to.
All right, so you're on top of it?
Yes,
I
and
can-
I also, I attend.
I can
Rest
relax a
assured,
little?
You can relax. I also, just to be clear, I attend the Capel meetings. Capel meetings are, it's an organization of administrators who work with English language learners, and I go to that 4 times a year. I'm actually the secretary, the recording secretary for the organization. We just met last Friday, so 4 times a year we get together, and the state actually comes to our meetings and gives us these updates and talks to us about this is who you would contact if you need support with this, and then we all work together. So it's not uncommon for me to reach out to Berlin and say, hey, I've got this situation, what do you know about it? So we do a lot of collaborating among all multilingual staff because we
Okay.
need each other.
Well, thank you so much, and you're welcome to come back anytime you would like.
Oh, thank you.
Aren't you nice?
Thank you all for listening.
Mr. Mr. Darrenowski, you had a comment or question?
Real quick. I had an opportunity a few weeks back talking with somebody in Italy who, my Italian is 0, and his English was 0. And we actually communicated through through a computer
Yeah.
software where it was a combination audio and visual. And I was impressed with the software. Is that something that you use also with these students?
So right now, we don't have specific software. We're using Google Translate. It has its limitations. So some of the languages, when it translated, it's really translating it at a literal level. So sometimes that doesn't really make sense. But oftentimes, our families can get the gist of it. So we use Google Translate a lot for like translating notices, but you can also put it as an app on your phone. So we've been utilizing it definitely a lot this year, particularly with our high school kids. They have it right on their cell phone, so we needed to give them access to the internet so they can have it, because they speak into the phone and it will translate it in English, and they just hand me the phone and it'll say it in English. So that's been one of our most successful tools. Creates a problem when you're talking about younger learners who don't read or write yet. So we're trying to figure that out with them. We need something that they can just speak into, but Google Translate does allow for that as well.
Great. And then one last thing, the academic advancements of these students, is that monitored? You know, you can't expect them to be straight A students, you know, especially with the language
Yeah.
issue. Is there any way of knowing, you know, their grade point average improving as time goes on, as they get more proficient?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of these kids, especially if we've had them since kindergarten, we get to really see the growth. I had the pleasure of watching a whole bunch of them last year graduate, which was really exciting because many of them had been in our program since kindergarten, and I had gotten to know them and their families through my other role as the ML coordinator. So we always get to see, you know, where their growth is. They're starting to put more resources and tools onto EdSite Secure, which is a system that Connecticut uses to kind of house all this information that we have on kids. And they actually are putting some information there that we can actually see Lost Links growth and kind of see it per district and start to really kind of assess like how successful are our programs. I haven't delved into that inextensively yet, but they are working on it, and they're training us to use that so we can actually see. But you would be surprised at how focused our high school kids are. I mean, we have a lot of kids that come in, and many of them have already graduated in their home country. So to them, this is like a repeat, and they're just trying to get the English under their belt. They are very hard workers. They want to go on to higher education, and they're very serious students. So every teacher will come back and be like, your kids are my favorite kids in the classroom because they're there because they want to learn, they want the opportunities, and they are incredibly hard workers.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry to keep belaboring the issue. So Mr. Medancy answered one of my questions about certified versus non-certification. Are there a certain limit of number of tutors per teacher?
So, how we're using our tutors now is our tutors are covering whole schools because the numbers that we have. So our larger schools have always been Thalberg and Flanders, and so we have one set tutor who stays in both of those buildings, one for Thalberg, one for Flanders. And then our other smaller schools, they'll rotate in between because they have fewer numbers. So they might spend, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday in one building and Tuesday and Thursday in the other building, or vice versa.
Sure.
If we have very high numbers like we do have in some of our elementary schools and the need is very high, they might have to spend the morning in one school, the afternoon in another school, vice versa, swap it up. So we've had to get really creative in order to make sure that we can meet the needs of all of the students.
So meeting the needs of the students, but also, I guess, to polish the question, would be more, there has to be a certified instructor who oversees the tutor?
Yeah, that
And is
doesn't
there a
necessarily mean
limitation?
present. It
Okay.
just means that the tutor is not the one designing the instruction.
Right.
And making the instructional decisions. They're the one carrying out the
Administering.
the plan, if you will.
I mean, similar to how a PA can function without the doctor necessarily there, but being
Correct.
in, like,
Yep.
being able to be contacted. So I guess a couple of my questions for this is, again, I'm still disappointed that we weren't able to do a world language course in our elementary schools and things like that. Given the, I guess, the current state of, you know, just our world right now, between what's been going on recently and then with Ukraine and everything else, could this potentially be something that we could maybe scale up and be more specific, I guess, in elementary schools and be able to not necessarily be part of the, like, necessary instruction, but maybe something that could be talked about with parents? I mean, I always wish that Polish school was available in Southington. You know, it was always in New Britain. You know, I'm sure if I told my 10-year-old self that, they'd be like, I don't want to do something else. But again, like, having that extra language at such an early age, I mean, we see the statistics of how much that broadens your ability to understand other things, not just in English or that language, but in music and mathematics and science. And then my other question, going back circling back to the, what we're discussing about VOAG, those students that are going to be graduating or have graduated, is there a way to potentially get them involved in the program and maybe helping, even if it's one day a month, with some of our elementary students? And again, like, I think that could be an awesome opportunity for, like, okay, this is going to get better and this is going to get easier and that type of thing. Again, like, more really trying to
Yeah,
create more
it certainly wouldn't be a missed opportunity. I think it would really be dependent on what happens post-high school for those students. You know,
Right.
if they're entering college, career, workforce, and whatnot.
But even in high school, because we're looking to give credits for work
Yeah.
experience, could we potentially be opening up
Yeah.
a different avenue for those students? Because I mean, gosh, like, literacy isn't going away, you know, again, like our multicultural.
So you're saying through the UELP program that I
Yeah.
just talked about, we could develop a pipeline of tutors for Simone to hire eventually?
Yes,
Neat.
so.
Our kids always come back. They always come back into the building. A whole bunch of them were there, like, recently, we took over a cafeteria and took pictures, and they always come back and visit. They're,
Yeah.
you know, but again, they have different things they're doing. They're in college. Some of them I've asked to come back and do some extra help. They're busy. But we're always trying to get them to come back and maybe help and serve our community. And maybe when they get a little older, they will come back, but they always come back.
Right, well, just thinking, like, while we have them, like, as
Yeah.
high school students, it's like,
I know, and I always thought it would be
yeah,
so
lock
great
'em
to be able to find a way to get them to those elementary schools so they could have those opportunities. And maybe with block scheduling and with this experiential learning opportunity, that could be something that we could eventually create for them. And I think some of them would really love that, so.
Right,
I would just like to say, looking back as a retired early childhood teacher and having a class of 13 students, 9 of whom English was the second language, I know what a challenge it is to have children, parents who English is not their main language. And I just think from the little ones that I had, up through children who have to take tests and they don't understand the language. It is a new country and they don't understand the language. What an incredible job you and your staff have done, and I would just like to say thank you. And whatever we can do to support you, Mr. Medancy? Yeah.
Thank you. I will pass that message on to them. I know it will make them incredibly happy because they work so hard.
And I can only imagine, I can only imagine. Thank you, Simone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, the steep matching funds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as we were notified through the town manager, not last week, but the week before, the good news is that we received, the town had applied for and received a $500,000 grant award for the purpose of resurfacing the track at Southington High School. The STEEP grant, as it's called, is a town-administered grant. However, part of the stipulations of the grant is that the community that applies for it has to put up a percentage of funds. And so our share of the funds, the town of Southington, is $206,000. So obviously, the town is kicking in the full 500 towards, their share. And so the conversation we have that is before us this evening is in terms of where do we want to reallocate the 206 from in order to be able to proceed, because part of the stipulation of the grant is you have to spend your share first before you can start spending the state's share. But in order for us to determine where our share is coming from, once we can iron that out, it then allows us to start to proceed forward with the ed specs, the architectural design, the bidding process for companies that may be doing this work, because we absolutely want to have this work locked in. We have the timelines that the town identified in the grant was that the project would begin in June of 2024 and finish in August of 2024. Through my conversations with the athletic director, that is ideal because all the teams that would normally throughout the spring need access to the fields wouldn't be able to go on the track, which essentially then makes the field unusable and creates some major scheduling challenges, as you can imagine. So by being able to do the work in June 24 and complete it in August 24, there'd be minimal disruption to the athletics programs at the high school, and it would allow the field to be accessed when it's complete. I think for us, another plus is this was a project identified as part of the athletic facilities project that went to referendum, but because that did not pass, we then had to break this project out over several years, and this allows us to address that immediately without waiting for it to come up within the capital plan over the years that it was identified to be done. As we had talked about, we have $235,000 in MERS dollars this year that are not encumbered, and we have, I think the Finance Committee at the last meeting shared out that there was about 86,366 roughly in unexpended funds that the Board of Finance did approve last night as carryover funds, so that we could request potential use of those funds and/or any combination of. So I think really the options that the board would want to weigh is, do they want to use to take the 206 from the full amount of MERS? Do they want to take a combination of those unexpended funds and with the remaining balance coming from the MERS funds? And then from there, allow Jennifer and Kyle and Peter to begin work on securing the proper permits and design and bids.
So, question, do we need a motion to discuss, or we're good to discuss at this point?
We can just, well, we can discuss it. Do you have
Somebody, if the discussion would be if somebody made a motion on a strategy, if you will, of funding source, and then you would talk about that.
It doesn't have to be a motion, though. We could talk about, we could have some discussion.
Well, if there's no motion on the floor, you're really just talking about the scope of the project.
Okay, so I guess like that's, if I may, so I guess one of the things, are we due to replace the field?
Good question. So the field is right now at year 12, but the reports we have on the condition of the field is that when we initially thought it would be a 10-year field and that we'd be replacing it, the two are not going to line up simultaneously. That the track is right now in disrepair, and so that needs to be done now, but the field is not in a state of needing repair right now. The town manager had originally earmarked a year to replace the turf, because it's also based on the funds that the town gets from the turf rentals and what we appropriate every year towards the turf replacement project.
Right.
That he had identified a time to replace it when we would have the full amount of funding, and essentially assuming it would be due for replacement at that time as well. What I can share, just using Wallingford as an example, they're replacing their turf at Sheen High School right now. That's a 20-year turf. And it's on year 20 as a 10-year turf. So you really don't know when you're going to fully have to replace it until
So
it's
it
time,
was
so to speak.
10-year turf, but they're replacing it
At year 20. I would say, right now, what the report we got when our turf was reviewed, that they said that this town does a really good job maintaining this turf. It's in very good shape for its age. We made note, Mr. Risser told me about it today, of a couple areas that are going to be repaired or patched, but we don't see any likelihood of needing to replace the turf this summer at the same time we'd be doing the track. That would have been ideal.
Well, that's always my concern too, is I feel like it just as a town in general, sometimes we okay, we'll replace this stretch of road, but then like the rest of the, we saw that in a couple paving projects.
Yeah.
Where it's like you repair the worst, but then you repair the worst, and then suddenly the area that wasn't at the worst is like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So it's, again, like just trying to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang, especially while equipment's there and that type of thing.
And that turf replacement was not part of the steep grant application. It was
Right.
just the track.
I figured that, but I know that we're putting money aside in a fund. where
Correct.
Essentially, we could potentially have that money there. Thank you, sorry.
I'll make a motion. So I move that the Board of Education approve the reallocation of $206,000, using first the $86,366 in non-lapsing, and the balance of $119,634 from the operating budget to matching funds as identified in the recently submitted steep grant as recommended by the administration.
Second.
any discussion?
Could you
Yeah.
repeat that again? I mean, you were a little quick.
Yeah, so the motion is, my motion is that we,
Just to break down.
yeah, so move that the Board of Education approve the reallocation of $206,000 using first $86,366 that we have in non-lapsing, and then using the balance, which would be $119,634 from the operating budget.
Those numbers? Yeah?
Those audited numbers?
Yes.
Just checking.
I was just,
Wanna make sure we have
I never even got down to Jen.
Spell it.
And I had to actually look at Jen and said, was it 86,366? I don't know where I pulled that number at. It was the right one, but it was.
Okay.
Finance report.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was the finance report.
I was going to
So
say,
as-
we
as-
had, yeah.
As far as the audited numbers go, that is currently still in process, and the auditors would give any adjustments by the end of December.
I'm good.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next items on the agenda are the first reads for the physics unit number 3, physics unit number 4, physics unit number 5, physics unit number 6, the general chemistry unit number 3, the accelerated general chemistry unit number, I should put my glasses on. Number 4, the accelerated general chemistry unit 5, and the middle school needs assessment, first reading. So if you have any questions, Mr. Pepe, Mrs. Anastasio?
Just
Yeah?
on the middle school, it's going to be a survey, right, Mr. Pepe?
The needs
They
assessment,
are going
yes.
to, they presented it to us at
Yeah.
curriculum. Excuse me. But it will go home to the parents previous to the kids filling it out, just to
Okay.
make certain that there are no questions or concerns, or if they don't want their child to participate in that.
Okay.
So they showed us the survey.
They did. There was nothing in it that was
Well, just to be on the safe side, that's what.
Yeah,
absolutely,
okay.
parents will get pretty.
So they'll get, okay, okay.
Can Mrs. Carmody and I be guest students for electrostatics and circuits?
Mrs. Carmody is going to explain it to all of us.
I think the soup went to your.
The simple harmonic motion, perhaps, instead? No, okay. All right.
Madam Chair,
yes.
before we move on.
Yes.
Mr. Pepe, what prompted the identification for the middle school needs assessment?
It's been an ongoing conversation since I was at DePaulo. As you know, year to year, both middle schools receive kids from the feeder schools. And part of the challenge is getting to know the kids and what they need. And so every year, groups are run in order to support our kids. And they are thematically based in terms of if there is a group of children who might be struggling because their parents are going through a divorce, for example. The sooner we can identify, get permission from families for students to participate, the sooner we support them.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other? No? Okay. Moving on. Public communications before we begin, I would like to say that we have received letters for the past 2 weeks regarding various areas, but we are not reading letters into, the complete letters into the minutes. I will give them so that they will be attached to the minutes, but we're not reading letters. We did that during COVID. We're not doing that any longer. But we received letters from Jim and Shelley, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your names, Nadwarski, Krista Anti-Giovanni, Shama Green, Michael Krasansky, and Nick and Shelley Vincenzo. So if there's any comment from the public? Before my time starts. Linda, they go to Steve. They go to Steve.
Yeah.
Susan Zabahansky. First, I'm going to read this passage that's in this book, The Native Son, so we know what we're discussing. "You at it again?" Jack asked. "I'm polishing my nightstick," Bigger said. They giggled. "I'll beat you," Jack said. "Go to hell." The organ played for a long moment on a single note, then died away. I'll bet you ain't even hard yet," Jack whispered. "I'm getting hard. Mine's like a rod," Jack said with intense pride. "I wish I had Bessie here now," Bigger said. "I could make old Clara moan now." They sighed. "I believe that woman who passed saw us. So what? If she comes back, I'll throw it in her." "You a killer." "If she saw it, she'd faint. Or grab it, maybe." "Yeah." Bigger saw Jack lean forward and stretch out his legs rigidly. "You gone?" "Yeah." "You pull off fast." Again they were silent, then Bigger leaned forward, breathing hard. "I'm gone. God damn." They sat still for 5 minutes, slumped down in their seats. Finally, they straightened. "I don't know where to put my feet now," Bigger said, laughing. "Let's take another seat." This is from the book, The Native Son, which was given to 15-year-old in the high school in English class. And many parents have filled out a form, 1312, for policy review about this book. I'm not sure how this book was approved and in what edition. A little history, it is a very old book, as many of you I'm sure know by now, written in about 1940. When it was written in 1940, it was not released in its full edition. It was only released in the abridged edition because of the content. In 1991, it was released in its unabridged edition. So I'm not sure when this got approved into curriculum, and I'm not sure which edition got approved into curriculum when that happened. This is just one page in this book, and the Book of the Month Club did make an edition that was, when it came out in the unabridged, when they decided to use it in high schools, that literally just took this particular passage out. So there is, if we find any literary value in the entire book, there is an edition that just does not include this one particular scene. I've read both versions, the abridged and unabridged, and I found that it is also a curriculum material that is of controversial in nature. So by other policies that you have about controversial material, it's supposed to be presented to the administration of the school. The teacher's supposed to present it. It's supposed to be reviewed. And I would like policy change to say that if it gets reviewed and is approved, that parents should have knowledge and have to sign off on their children having it. And that's the first thing, because I don't believe that's part of that policy, and Steve can correct me if I'm wrong. So this book is political in nature, and there's no doubt about it, about racism and how it affects people. And it's saying basically that there's a systemic issue to racism. That is a political view. There's also the view that there's family issues that can cause criminal behavior, and it doesn't necessarily equate to systemic racism. So that in and of itself requires the teacher to present both sides. So I hope that that's what's happening in the future. So there's many parents who have asked for it to be reviewed. I know that process started at least a week ago, so that gives us another week or whatever by what you just read earlier in the agenda. I have other parents' passages I can read. I'm the parent of a sophomore at Southington High School. This year I decided that I would read her assigned book along with her. Not very far into The Native Son, I came along a scene where two friends decided to go to the movie theater. I don't feel this type of material is age appropriate, not to mention the rest of the book that I haven't gotten to yet, but I have seen graphic violence in the manner of the same man raping, killing, and burning a woman in the book. I'm sure this book is a classic and I will finish reading it for myself, but I don't feel it's appropriate for the age that was given. I did look up reviews, and it's kind of funny because the students who reviewed it under 17 said that there were graphic violence, sexual violence. I mean, they went on. It was amazing to me to see students giving this book less than 5 stars. In the unabridged edition, in all the reviews I looked at, it was recommended for 17 and over. So I just don't think it's appropriate. I'm going to make way for another one, anyone else who wants to speak, but I am also have a commentary for someone sitting in the audience, which I'll read for her.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? We're going to do the 5 minutes. Yeah.
Hi, Effie Mutajanis, 53 Rustic Oak Drive. I am a parent of a 10th grade student who's reading the book right now. She has the unabridged version that she was given at school, so I'm not sure if this is just like a problem with the book supply. There's unabridged and abridged floating around. So first thing I did was look at her book. I mean, I honestly wouldn't mind if she had the unabridged or discuss challenging topics in our home. So, you know, we don't promote sexuality, but I don't have a problem discussing and being open and honest with a young student. And we read this in high school too, in accelerated English, and it was a challenging topic. But you know, we read other challenging books as well. But I just wanted to let you know that we have the unabridged version. And also the English teacher sent us an email to let us know that they would be reading the book. And I think they sent it like a few days before they were distributing the book to notify the parents. So I don't know if all the teachers did that, but our student's teacher did. So FYI.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Could I have her name and address,
Yep,
please?
absolutely. Leslie Parmentier, and she's at Huntington Lane in Plantsville. I'm sorry, Hunter's Lane in Plantsville. Good evening, my name is Leslie Parmentier. I'm a resident on Hunter's Lane in Plantsville. She's new to Southington. I truly wish I could, no, I'm sorry, that was for the last meeting, so she's already been here. She wants to voice her objection to explicit sexual content being taught by some educators in Southington Public Schools. A retired special educator, I have 30 years classroom experience at middle and high school levels. I'd like to speak to the curriculum in the Southington schools and also the important role classroom teachers play to promote learning and shaping social and emotional behaviors for students. My background includes an MS in learning disabilities plus a 6-year degree in curriculum and special ed administration. I've devoted my adult life to educating children, and I care deeply about the lives of our future leaders. Much discussion is taking place about what is acceptable to share in classrooms. I happen to believe the most important components of effective education include curriculum or content and student mastery of that material. And of course, effective teachers are required in this process. I always knew that during the school year, educators spend more time with the students entrusted in their care than the children's own parents. With this in mind, I decided to look up related research. For all studies I've reviewed, outcomes showed that parents spend less and less time with their kids these days. I don't think I need to go into the reasons for that. But I'd like to enter into the record a link to one notable study completed by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2022. It measured time that parents spent with children in their homes under the age of 18. I did send this to the Board of Ed, so I hope you guys had it because I didn't hear her name mentioned, so there is a link to that study. The outcomes of this study strongly suggest that American parents spend significantly less time with their children than the classroom teachers. So we know the importance of the educator's role in teaching young minds while also shaping social and emotional behaviors. For hundreds of years, parents have trusted public schools and the staff they employ to teach approved curriculum that is right and good for their children's future success. Parents expect that curriculum has been reviewed and approved by trusted school and city administration members and elected boards of education. With this in mind, I believe that materials having explicit sexual content should never be included in public school classrooms. Photos, vector drawings, cartoon illustrations, videos, written or narrative content regarding sexual topics are not appropriate in public school classrooms. Even implied sexual ideas can influence young minds in ways that may go against what is instilled in them at home. Only parents know best the maturity levels of their own children. Parents should decide at what age to introduce sex education in ways that align with their own religious beliefs and family values. Classroom lessons that have materials that make students feel confused, uncomfortable, or embarrassed are just plain wrong. Yes, it does take a community to raise a child, but the public school system needs to do their job, which is to teach subjects that prepare students to work and be productive citizens in society. They need to stop trying to usurp parents' roles, with sex education being one important part. The job of elected members of the Southington Board of Education is to allow educators to teach from the established approved curriculum. They should admonish and let go any teacher who chooses to go rogue against established curriculum in order to infuse their own agenda into classroom lessons. While I sincerely believe that the majority of classroom educators do adhere to required curriculum content in their respective subject areas, there are some teachers who have gone against expectations. I've always believed that classroom educators should present lessons as if every child had a parent observing them from the back of the room. And I would now add that every school administrator should show they are actively listening to parents when they email, phone, or speak openly at these Southington Board of Education meetings. I, too, am sitting here actively in the back of the room, and I am a new active voter in Southington with eyes and ears wide open about what is being taught to Southington's children.
Anyone else from the public here to speak? Mr. Oshana, I believe you have,
Yes, move to expel student 2023-2024-01 as stipulated by the administration.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Before I make my motion, I have a question pertaining to an item that we had discussed earlier. Is that something that is, do we have to make a motion, or it's not on the agenda?
If it's,
Two-thirds vote for the board
To add an item.
to add an agenda, if you want to add it as an agenda item, 11C. 11C.
Did I miss that one?
Well, if you want to talk about something else,
Well, no, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So we didn't have to do any action for that?
No.
Forget it.
No.
no,
Okay, we're good.
No action?
No action.
no action. We're good.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, so yeah.
Let's go.
All